always we have to first replace the leftmost non-terminal, then we have to proceed. So now you can see the difference. From E, through a leftmost derivation, we'll get EAE. Now here you can see the leftmost non-terminal is E. Here the leftmost non-terminal is E. So first we have to do that derivation. So E, from E will derive ID. Will derive ID. So it is ID capital AE. It is ID capital AE. Now the leftmost non-terminal, it is A. So now for this A, we have to apply a derivation, and we'll use the production rule. A gives star, and we are getting ID star E. ID star E. Now which is the leftmost non-terminal? It is E. So we'll replace with ID. So it is known as a leftmost derivation. This is known as a leftmost derivation. We have to always give a priority to the leftmost non-terminal. We have to always give the priority to the leftmost non-terminal. So now exactly reverse of it is known as a rightmost derivation. So now here replace the rightmost non-terminal. Here it should be a rightmost. We have to replace the rightmost. We have to replace the rightmost non-terminal. So now you can see the difference. Here we have from E through a rightmost derivation, we are getting capital E, capital A, capital E, because there is only one such rule for ID into ID. We require 3 symbols. Now again, which is the rightmost non-terminal? It is this last E. The rightmost non-terminal is this last E. So we'll write capital E, capital A, and then ID. We'll give capital E, capital A, and then ID. Now which is the rightmost non-terminal in this sentential form? It is capital A. So now we'll apply the derivation rule and we'll replace A with star. Now which is the rightmost non-terminal? It is E. So finally we are getting this ID star ID. So basically in case of rightmost derivation, we are giving a priority to the rightmost non-terminal first. We are giving a priority to the rightmost non-terminal first. So now if I consider a general thing that if there is a production, A produces delta. If there is a production, A produces delta. If beta A gamma, if beta A gamma through a leftmost derivation gives beta delta gamma. So you can see this beta is same. This gamma is also as it is. So beta A gamma through a leftmost derivation gives beta delta gamma. Then what is true about beta? Can you answer this? Can you tell anything about beta? Yes. Always beta contains set of terminals. Always beta contains a set of terminals. There will not be any non-terminal in the beta when it is a leftmost derivation, because as per the leftmost derivation we can only apply it to A when beta does not have any another a non-terminal. We can apply this A produces delta in the derivation step. We can apply this A produces delta in the derivation step when there is no non-terminal in the beta. So this beta contains only terminal symbols. Then and then you can replace A with delta. You can replace A with delta. Okay, now if beta A gamma through a rightmost derivation, if beta A gamma through a rightmost derivation gives beta delta gamma, what is true about gamma? Beta A gamma through a rightmost derivation gives us beta, delta, gamma. What is true about gamma? So can you make a judgment about gamma if it is a rightmost derivation? If it is a rightmost derivation, can you tell about gamma? What is the characteristic of gamma if it is a rightmost derivation? Yes, can anyone share? So gamma contains a set of terminals. Gamma contains a set of terminals always. It will not be a single terminal, but it will be a set of terminals. So in this case, we can say gamma contains only terminals. So basically, to represent this derivation process, leftmost or rightmost, we are normally generating a parse tree. So now, if we apply a leftmost derivation for this id plus id star id, if I want to apply a leftmost derivation to this id plus id star id, then I can generate a tree like this from E, because now we are using this as a grammar. I am using this as a grammar which is known to you. Capital E gives EAE, or within bracket parenthesis E, or minus E, or ID. So now using this, we are writing from E, we are getting E plus E. So definitely the first step here is very clear. EAE. Then from this, we have to write in the leftmost derivation ID AE, right? So this will be this correct process. From E we'll get EAE. Now from this we'll get IDAE. Now from this we'll get ID plus E. Now from this we'll get ID plus now E into E, right? So actually here I think there is a correction, otherwise so this will resolve the thing. Let me do some minor correction here in this slide so it will work properly. Instead of this, let me write here E plus E, and then let me add E into E. So I think this will serve the purpose, and now there is no need of this A. So this will be a better situation. E plus E, E into E, then we have parenthesis E or minus E ID. Okay, now this will work fine. Otherwise we have to do a lot of modifications in this slide. So now I think we can continue further. So now let me write in this way so we can use the previous one easily. Okay, so this will be easy for us to understand. So E gives E plus E, E plus E, then we have E into E. So now I am using this directly. E gives E plus E. Now it is a leftmost derivation. So now I will replace this leftmost non-terminal E with ID. So we are using this. I am replacing this E with this ID. So ID plus E will be there. Now again ID plus, now we have E. So now for this E, as we require this multiplication sign, we'll apply E into E. So we'll get ID plus E into E. Now from this we'll get ID plus ID into E. Then we have ID plus ID into ID. So it is the parse tree. Basically the focus is on the parse tree, that how you can derive ID plus ID star ID. Similarly, if we go for another option, this is also valid because we have two options. Either I can replace E with E plus E, or I can replace E with E into E. So we have first E into E, then Again, we are going for a leftmost derivation. So now for this E, I am writing E plus E star E. Now for this first E, we'll write ID plus E star E because this is the leftmost non-terminal. Now here, this is the leftmost non-terminal. So I will write ID plus ID star E. This is the leftmost non-terminal, so we'll get ID. So ID plus ID star ID. So what is the issue here? That we have an ambiguous grammar, because this grammar which we have considered is ambiguous grammar. We have more than one leftmost derivation. We have more than one leftmost derivation. As you can see here, there is one leftmost derivation in which we are giving a plus as a first and then multiplication, while here we are giving a multiplication operation first and then we have plus. So because we have two distinct leftmost derivations, this grammar is an ambiguous grammar. This is an ambiguous grammar. So now we know that this is one issue with the grammar. So when we have certain issues in the grammar, we cannot directly go with a top-down parsing technique or a bottom-up parsing technique. So this is not the only issue, right? There are many other issues in the grammar. If that are present, you cannot deal with a top-down parsing technique or bottom-up parsing technique. So now you should have one question: why we cannot consider a CFG in the lexical analysis? Why we cannot consider? Why not CFG for lexical analysis? You should have a question that why we have a context-free grammar for parsing, why we have a lexical, for lexical analysis we are using a regular grammar. So why we cannot use a CFG for lexical analysis? Why cannot have a context-free grammar for a lexical analysis? Why we should learn two different grammars? So as we know that the regular languages are smallest and it is sufficient for lexical analysis. While if we use a context-free grammars, they are more powerful definitely, because it is having a stack as a data structure. It can memorize the thing. It is more powerful, but we will still not use a context-free grammar for the lexical analysis. This kind of a regular expression, A or B star ABB, A or B star ABB. So we know that regular language is a subset of a context-free language. A regular language is a subset of context-free language. So now from this diagram, we can write an equivalent CFG. We can convert this FA to CFG if you recall your TOEFL. And if you have forgotten, no problem. Here I can mention it. So now for this we'll take 4 different non-terminals: A0, A1, A2, A3. For state 0 I am taking A0. For state 1 we have A1. For state 2 we have A2. For state 3 we have A3. So now if there is a edge from node I to node J, then we'll write AI gives small a, capital AJ. From A of I, non-terminal, we'll get small a terminal and non-terminal AJ. Similarly, if we have a edge, because we have two input symbols here only, A and B. So if there is a node I, input is B, and we'll go to node J, then we'll write A of I, non-terminal, produces B, that is a and AJ. If there is an accepting state, then we'll add AI produces null. So here you can see A3 is the accepting state, so we'll write like this. Because A3 is the accepting state, we'll write A3 produces null. Right here, because A0 is the starting state, our starting non-terminal or the start symbol in the context-free grammar is considered as S. So here S is equal to A0 because 0 is the starting node. So now we can write for this. If we want to write, we can write like this. A0 gives small a, A0, because from the A0 state on input A, we are again going to A0. From A0 state on input A, we are again going to A0. So A0 produces small a, A0. From the A0 state on input B, we are again going to A0. So we'll write from A0 on input B, we are going to A0. From A0 on input A, we are going to 1. We are going to state 1. So we'll write like this. From A0, we are getting A1, small a and capital A1. Similarly, from A1 on input B, we are writing BA2. From A1, we'll go to A2 using B. From A2, we'll go to A3 using B. So from A2 using B, we'll go to A3. So we'll use this thing. And because A3 is the accepting state, we'll write A3 gives null. So you can see that how we can convert easily a finite automata to a CFG. So basically, once you are getting a CFG from this finite automata, that means indirectly we are telling that now I can use this context-free grammar for the lexical analysis. I can use this context-free grammar for this lexical analysis. So now, so this is what we have done. Now, if I want to do a derivation of this, because we are using a CFG, we are using a CFG for lexical analysis. So now you can see that we want to derive you have to do a lot of derivation steps. Here also you can see there are multiple options. Both this rule starts with A. So again you have to do a backtracking. So if you use a context-free grammar, I can say still I can derive this is not a required thing. It is not a required thing. So I can say that if we use a context-free grammar for the lexical analysis, then we can say that CFGs are overkill. So it is an extra hard work we are doing to recognize the tokens. Basically, if we use a CFG for the purpose of lexical analysis, then we are doing extra hard work. It is not required. It is an excessive work. A work which is actually not required to recognize the tokens. To recognize the tokens, we don't have to do that much work. We don't have to do so many derivation steps. So that's why CFGs are overkill for the lexical analysis. We require simple rules to complete our. That's why we are going for a regular language. We are going for a regular language so that we can have a regular expression. We can do that task very easily because regular expressions are concise, or we can say easy to understand. So even though we can use a CFG for the lexical analysis, we will not prefer a context-free grammar for the lexical analysis because we are doing a lot of extra work for it, which is not required actually to do a lexical analysis, to recognize the tokens. So we will not use CFG for the lexical analysis. Also, if we are separating this lexical analysis from this syntax analysis, then we can build a simple and efficient lexical analyzer easily, because now we have two separate things: separate lexical analysis, separate regular grammar for it. So we can develop a more efficient lexical analyzer using a regular expression and finite automata, and it is more efficient as compared to this CFG. So one more thing is, regular expressions for the lexical analysis and context-free grammar for parsing also promotes modularity, low coupling, and high cohesion. Because of this, we are having a low coupling and the high cohesion if we are separating the lexical analysis from this parsing phase or syntax analysis, and if we use a separate grammar for both, regular expressions for the lexical analysis and a context-free grammar for the syntax analysis. Why we have to use the CFG for the purpose of syntax analysis? Because we have to do a lot of matching, like opening parenthesis and closing parenthesis, as I told, beginning and end keywords. We have to match the keywords like this: if, then, else. So this ordering is important. There should be if. In some languages we are using a keyword then, and then we are using else. Also, we have beginning and end of function calls. We have beginning and end of function calls. So we have to do a lot of matching between the two different parameters. So that's why we cannot use a regular language for the syntax analysis. So we have discussed two things: that why we cannot use CFG, or why we should not use CFG for the lexical analysis, because it is not required. It is a lot of extra overhead. We can develop a better lexical analyzer with a regular language. And similarly, why we cannot use a regular language for the syntax analysis? Why we have to go for compulsory context-free grammar for this syntax analysis? Because we have to do a lot of matching, which is not possible in the regular language. So basically, we want to find a structural association between the tokens. In case of lexical analysis, we are only having individual tokens. We are worried about whether individual token is valid or not. We are not considering or comparing one token with other token. We are not linking one token with another token. Once you process one token, it is over. Then you will go for the next token and you will process it. So all the tokens are treated independently, basically, in the lexical analysis. While on the other hand, in the syntax analysis, you have to check the structural association. You have to check this structural association among the tokens. So that's why you have to go for a context-free grammar, in which you have, in one particular grammar production, more than one tokens, and they are associated in a particular order. So when you consider any example of context-free grammar, you will find more than one. That's why this context-free grammar itself will tell us this thing, that on the right hand side we have a combination of terminals and non-terminals. We have combinations of terminals and non-terminals. Here also you can see that we have three parameters here. So basically it uses three tokens, E plus E, E into E. So you have multiple tokens in one productions rule of the context-free grammar. So that's why it is showing basically a structural association among the tokens. And for that we require a context-free grammar. You cannot use a regular grammar. So now when we are considering a grammar, before we can use that grammar for the parsing process, we have to resolve the issues with the grammar. So we have to first resolve the grammar difficulties. Once you resolve that grammar difficulties, then and then you can use that grammar. We can say pure grammar or purified grammar in the top-down parsing or in the bottom-up parsing. So basically, we are developing a grammar for a particular language or for a particular task. And when you are using a different parsing techniques, then different parsing techniques having a different target to achieve. So according to that, we have to first remove the issues in the grammar. Once you clean the grammar, once you remove the issues, which are with the grammar. Then and then you can use this top down and bottom up technique. If I consider a top down technique, then in top down we have three main things. One is brute force. Then we have a predictive parser. Then we have LL1 parser. So basically this top-down technique, if we use, then it can handle a certain types of grammar. Because in context-free grammar also we have subcategories. In context-free grammar also we have some subcategories. So basically through a top-down technique we can handle LL1 class of grammars. If the grammar is not LL1 type, right? So this we'll learn in detail as we proceed further. If the grammar is not of LL1 type, then it cannot be handled by a top-down parser. So for that we are using in bottom-up parser different techniques. So in case of bottom-up parsing, we have SLR, then we have LALR and other techniques. Right? So we have other techniques also. We have also a special technique which is known as operator precedence parsing. We have another technique which is known as operator precedence parsing. So based on the requirement, because when you consider a compiler, it has a specific grammar, so it uses a special technique, which is a bottom-up parsing technique. But if you want to develop your small grammar for any small task, it is not necessary that you have to always develop a grammar for only compiler. For any small specific task, you can also design a grammar and you can check the validity of the statements generated by that grammar, and you can use in some application. So basically, as per your need, you have to decide that which technique of parsing is suitable for me, whether it is a top-down technique or a bottom-up technique or a operator precedence parsing technique, because that depends on what type of grammar you have designed. And once you have designed the grammar, you can decide based on the type of the grammar you have designed, which is the most suitable technique. But before we can use any of these techniques, you have to resolve these issues. That if the grammar is ambiguous, you cannot use it directly. If there are null productions, then you have to eliminate null. If there is a cycle in the grammar, we have to eliminate cycle. If there is a left recursion issue, you have to remove that from the grammar. If there is a left factoring problem in the grammar, you have to also eliminate that problem from the grammar. So once you resolve these issues from the grammar, then and then whatever grammar you are getting after it, that you can use for either a top-down parsing technique or you can use it for the bottom-up parsing technique. Without it, you cannot do that thing. So basically, after doing these steps, removing the ambiguity, removing null production, removing cycle, and once you get a new grammar, or we can say you are removing these errors. This is nothing but one kind of errors in the grammar. And these are nothing but one kind of errors or problems with the grammar. So what you have to do, grammar, then and then you can use this technique. So first you have to remove these ambiguities or problems associated with the grammar, and then you can get a new grammar. You are redesigning a grammar, and then you can use this technique, top-down parsing or bottom-up parsing technique. So in the next session, our focus will be on how to resolve the difficulties which are present in the grammar. So today, yes, any query in this? Are you getting the things? Will various issues which are with the and how to handle that issues.